Hello everyone, welcome to the PDSF 2025 live stream. We're here to speak now in this English speaking slot about the intelligence at the European level. And for that, I'm welcoming a very seasoned intelligence officer, Mr. Gerhard Conrad. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, firstly, can you please summarize your career? You had a very long career in the German Foreign Intelligence Agency and then at the European level.
Well, indeed, my career is unfortunately already long, since that's already then the indication that I'm too old for serving anymore. Anyway, I started in intelligence in 1990 as an Orientalist with the German Foreign Intelligence Service. I had some experience before in defense intelligence as a reserve officer of the Air Force in Germany since the 80s. And then, well, in the German Foreign Intelligence Service, I was really active in monitoring and later on in a collection of intelligence on the Middle East. I was working in the Middle East, and during my time in the Middle East, I was as well negotiating within secret frameworks between Hezbollah and Israel, or even later Hamas and Israel, for the liberation of MIAs and KIAs, so missed in action, killed in action soldiers and citizens. And in the end, after some leading positions in the German Foreign Intelligence Service, I ended up in Brussels as a European civil servant, as a director of the European Union Intelligence Assessment and Situation Center between 2016 and 2019.
Okay, so that leads us straight to the point, which is the intelligence at the European level. I forgot to say that you're here to represent the Intelligence College in Europe, and we're going to speak about it. But firstly, allied intelligence services have been cooperating obviously for a long time, but when and how has this cooperation been formalized in the European Union?
Well, let's put a key sentence ahead. Intelligence is not being done for itself, it's following demands, normally demands by governments. Governments create intelligence services for their own purpose. It's a tool for projection of power, for collection of vital information. And so, of course, the European Union did not have any kind of intelligence function, I call it not to speak of a service, prior to roughly 2000, when European member states decided to become more active in foreign and security policy as a EU, which was quite a new development. The EU was there for internal purposes, for, let's say, creating prosperity and security inside Europe. And then discovering that the world surrounding the European Union was not so cozy, so that the European Union, the member states together, would be well advised to jointly look across the border. Then Xavier de Solana, he was the first High Representative for Foreign Security Policy of the European Union. He then decided to create a small cell of intelligence analysts within his own situation center, 24 situation center, everybody has it, you know, which is based on open sources, media, and then having an additional cell of intelligence analysts, he approached out of his position, the high-ranking position, some governments, a coalition of the willing, in the sense, and asked them to dispatch, to second analysts, intelligence analysts from their respective foreign intelligence services. And at the beginning it was only 5 countries, 5 governments who reacted positively, but that was the beginning. And at the same time, the European Union got as well a military council, military committee, and a military staff in case European governments decided to dispatch soldiers to third countries. And you know, at that time there were events, for example, as well in the 90s in Yugoslavia, and then you had cases in Africa where European governments, sometimes 1 or 2 were active, but not a community, and they wanted to do better. So there was a European military staff as well in 1999, And of course, an ordinary military staff, a regular military staff, has a J2 function. And the J2 function was then the military intelligence division. And so you had civil intelligence analysis and you had military intelligence under the same roof. Yeah? And that's the start. And it developed then sometimes in a positive way, sometimes it was a little bit lame, yeah, a little bit hampered by disinterest of member states as well. But you have, until this very day, you have these two functions, a civil intelligence analysis function and a military analysis and planning function.
Okay, so it went step by step, like everything in the European Union history, step by step, slowly, and okay. So you told us that you used to lead the EU Intelligence and Situation Center, EU INTCEN, as we say in short. In concrete terms, how does it implement this cooperation between member states on a daily basis?
Yeah. I mean, to be very clear, that is for the military side, UMS INT as well as EU INTCEN. It's very clear. INTCEN has no intelligence collection capacity on its own. There are no spies running around. Yeah? The EU has at least access to satellite imagery, not in the INTCEN, but in the satellite center. But they don't have their own satellites, for example, flying. They rely on the support of member states, services, EMINT, satellite imagery services, or they buy it. Today more than ever. And I mention satellite center because it's similar with the military and the civilian intelligence function. They rely, INTCEN and UMS INT rely mainly on the contributions, the intelligence contributions of member states' services in Europe. That means the external intelligence services, the domestic intelligence services, as well as the military intelligence services. So it's a wide scope of intelligence producers, but it is finished intelligence, which then is being fused into comprehensive intelligence reports and situation papers for the HRVP, for the head, the president of the council, for the president of the commission, and for member states. Imagine there is a quite important dimension of that work. You have quite a lot of smaller member states in the European Union who do not have big services, who are not represented worldwide, not even via a diplomatic representation, an embassy, and their source of qualified information on the wide world is EU INTCEN, is UMS INT, and if they are members of NATO, of course, NATO reporting as well. But their government members, Secretary of State, are being briefed on the basis of this kind of information, intelligence, which is produced by EU INTCEN, UMS INT. And so I think it has a major role in creating situational awareness, a common situational awareness among the EU member states.
And so every member state decides which intelligence it will share with the EU INTCEN.
It is voluntary. It's more, originally it is a kind of push function, as you said rightly, that governments know, not the governments themselves, but the services say, well, I think we should share this or that piece of finished intelligence with EU INTCEN. But of course, it's since years it has developed, of course, this kind of give and take. So, of course, EU INTCEN, as a director of EU INTCEN, I'm paid regular visits to most of the services of the EU, and we discussed what is useful, what they can do, what they can't do. That's quite fair. And on the longer run, you get acquainted with each other. Services know it's in reasonably good hands. They see the products, which are in their majority good and well accepted. And so it's nowadays, it is voluntary, but it is a kind of voluntary commitment.
And EU INTCEN has a point of contact in every national intelligence service.
Yeah, the good thing is these point of the POCs are in INTCEN due to the fact that the services second at least one analyst to INTCEN. This analyst is as well the POC. the ambassador, the small ambassador of the respective service. And the community in INTCEN is a community of not all, but quite a large number of European intelligence services.
So this is, can you tell us an example of an intelligence operation made through this European cooperation?
Yeah, well, as I said, we are not doing, so INTCEN is not doing operations abroad, but the closest thing I could mention to have a kind of coordinated collection effort is when INTCEN is approaching EU-SATCEN, the satellite center, because here, of course, it is a kind of intelligence collection, imagery intelligence collection, and if you are doing it in a timely way, and we have been doing it in my time, for example, several times, so they made a difference, for example, in making good judgments on migration issues. There was one famous case when not only media, but as well the UN had the idea that African migrants would now, since Libya was closed, would now choose the path via Algeria. And everybody was just jumping on that bandwagon, and at that time it was a discussion whether a high-ranking European political initiative would have to be launched vis-à-vis Algeria. And my deputy and dear friend and myself, we said, well, we don't believe it. And my deputy managed to buy time in order to task the satellite center and just making the relevant imagery intelligence to prove that there was nothing on the ground. That's the way where you can say that intelligence makes a difference in policy making. And so nothing happened, and so nobody was compromised, no, a needless confrontation between the EU and Algeria took place. So this is the kind of operation that you can do with the means you have. And of course, in principle, but it was underdeveloped at my time, you can, of course, do as well things with open sources intelligence. Because again, here, you have the means in principle. It's accessible. It's only your qualification in data mining, data scraping, and then, of course, the assessment of that, and then you can produce it. This is, I think, a story for the hopefully near future, for instance.
And you were mentioning your deputy. Yourself, you're German. What was the citizenship of your deputy, and is there a turnaround between different citizenships?
Yeah, so that follows the rhythm of the directors and the deputy directors. That something follows roughly the EU scheme. Yeah? So in my case, or in our case, my deputy and me, we happen to be on the transfer list of the EU, because we had been EU officials, not seconded national officials. So my deputy, François Fischer, was from France, not too difficult to understand. He got his post as a deputy, and I applied for the director's post upon orders of my government. So François arrived in December 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I arrived in January 2016, and we had a wonderful time for these 3.5 years. This was the couple franco-allemand. Oui.
Très bien, très bien. Bravo pour votre français. So it's a good transition, because I think François Fischer now is the president of the Intelligence College in Europe. So, and you're a speaker for this ICE, Collège européen du renseignement, in French version. What can you tell us about this college?
Well, I mean, just to say, it was, in fact, it was a logical and happy choice, by the way, than having François, let's say later on, after long years, and after my time as well, successful years as a deputy head of the INTCEN, than to just end up as the permanent secretary of the Intelligence College in Europe. Look, I mean, the Intelligence College in Europe is a creation by Monsieur le Président Macron. Yeah, so he initiated it in 2019 as an intergovernmental issue. This is very important to mention, that the ICE is not a European, not an EU sponsored or created building, but it is, let's say, an intergovernmental group of like-minded governments. It's not the whole. It's not the whole EU member states, and these governments consider it as important that their respective intelligence communities reach out to each other in that sense, semi-official way. It said you have, of course, the intelligence talks between analysts of service A and analysts of service B and so on. But it is, let's say, having workshops or other informal meetings of people who had, of course, to be authorized by their services to join. But these are groups of 2015 to 2025 professionals who then are discussing together with members of the intelligence studies community, for professors, for example, of the universities which are offering courses in intelligence studies, items as what will be the influence of quantum computing on encryption and security, what artificial intelligence will change in the next 5 to 10 years in analysis or even in collection. What are, say, new developments in the sphere of terrorist threat? Such things which are larger, not tradecraft, because that's classified, but let's say thinking about intelligence. And this is now, from modest beginnings, now it's already a pretty intensive circus, in that sense. It's just being moved from country to country. So each country is, the interested country has a kind of sponsorship, is hosting 1 or 2 workshops or conferences. And then you start already observing that people know each other. And say, well, we met already here or there, and so it's very good that a Polish colleague understands better the French one and the Italian one or the German one or the Scandinavian ones. So that's the core issue of that, learning to know each other without necessarily sharing secrets.
Just like a team building, very particular team building at the European level.
It is, of course, it's novel, because services normally have no tradition in socializing.
Okay, I don't know that field very much. You know it obviously better than me. Can you tell us what the new global context right now? Can it help those communities and also the EU INTCEN to maybe improve their way to work? Or
frankly speaking, bad times are good times for services and military. So if the need to protect yourself becomes imperative and the perception of threats is mounting, then of course people start, policy makers, but also heads of services start to think whether they are able to master, to face the challenges, the rising challenges on their own. They have the preference, of course, to do it all alone, but most of them know they can't do it. Now, due to the fact that the United States of America, or let's say not the United States themselves, but let's say the presidency of Trump, is doing an unprecedented step, publicly and squarely and aggressively, putting into question some of the foundations of European security. They say, listen, what do you pay for me? The original formula was that the United States had a major vital interest in Europe as, the counterpart, the transatlantic counterpart. This was after World War II. And now, at least there is a strong perception. We had to be careful. There is a very strong perception. And unfortunately, Mr. Musk or Mr. Trump and, of course, Mr. Putin are doing quite a lot of publicity and action on the ground to put this question, this transatlantic bridge, into question, not only in the military field, but as well in the intelligence field. And there are voices now mounting, political voices, even in good old Germany, yeah, which is, as you in France know, are notoriously transatlantic, yeah, and not so much Gaullist, yeah, that politicians, conservative politicians, start to say, we will have to do it without the US. We are not that yet. Yeah? But you see, this is, of course, now the intelligence world seems to be in turmoil, at least since 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
So to conclude, we are getting soon to the end of this slot. We will go to a personal, because you had such a long career on different fields. So what is your most memorable experience as an intelligence officer?
Well, let's say there are two major moments, let's say. One moment lasted only for 9 years. It was, let's say, my international secret mediation or negotiation between Israel, Hezbollah or Hamas. You know what has been happening now until this very day with hostage cases with Hamas. I had it with one hostage and I had to do it in a way alone as a single mediator. All that, all these fates you are witnessing, all the completely different attitudes of people on the different levels, from the killer, yeah, to the radical politician, yeah, and of course to the established politicians. This is of course unique. This was a unique experience for 9 years. And the other one is really having the 3.5 years as director INTCEN, because EU INTCEN, as in the positive sense, as the accumulation of talent, international intelligence, mostly youngish people, yeah, boundary spanning exercises, yeah, that you're really crossing borders and joining hands for meaningful cooperation. This is very uplifting, and it is as well producing results of a new quality.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Fischer. Dankeschön, sorry, Entschuldigung. Thank you very much, Herr Conrad, for joining us. And thank you very much for following us on the PDSF 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much.